thanks again, everybody, for joining us today for our webinar, Assets to Income. And this is a conversation with local experts. So we are talking about short-term rentals today. And this is a little bit of a digression for us in a way, just because we've been doing a lot of, these panelist conversations and talking to subject matter experts throughout the last few months. And a lot of most of that's been really for current business owners or people potentially getting into business for themselves. But this is a little bit different, right? This is, had the great idea of talking about, maybe some incremental revenue as we all kind of pull out of this last, like Liz said, 15 months in the pandemic, and talking about, other options we might have. Let's just put it directly, to make money. And I have not introduced myself yet either, sorry. Erika Davis, I am an economic recovery consultant for the Watertown Oswego SBDC. And I always like to mention here that the SBDC advisors at the Watertown and Oswego centers are here to help you. So please remember that they are a free resource to you if you're thinking about starting up any business or if you are an existing business owner. And there is nothing like that free guidance and help to get started. So, well, I want to introduce our panelists at this point. We have Emily Baker with us. She is an Airbnb host. She is a super host with Airbnb. We have Hanah Ehrenreich here. She is a business program navigator for the Cooperative Federal Credit Union. So she is a lender here today to talk about the options that you might have in short-term rental. And Kiah Sugrue, she is one of our business advisors here at the Watertown Oswego SBDC. And I have Rhonda Cabrinha here with us too. And she is an insurance specialist at Ellis, Moreland and Ellis, in Syracuse, New York. And I want to welcome all of you here today with us. So my first question actually is to, I'm going to direct to Kiah to start anyway, but of course, if any one of you want to kind of chime in at any time, that's great. So what kind of assets or property, can I rent on a short-term basis? Yeah.
Actually, this is becoming a big new business wave. Recently, I learned not only can you rent out assets such as like your home and your vacation rental and apartment, you can also rent out other assets such as your boat. So there's listing sites out there right now, boatbound.com, boatsetter.com, cruisin.com. They're set up similar to like an Airbnb site or a VRBO site. This is just an amazing opportunity because if you have a boat, everybody knows boats are expensive, and they're just probably sitting at the dock and barely being used. And this is a great way to be able to at least cover the overhead, the insurance, the dock fee, and then the maintenance required. So that's just one example. Possibilities are really endless when it comes to renting out private property. You can rent out almost anything nowadays. People are renting out things like, storage space they may have, office space, parking space, camping and fishing gear, car and RV rentals, land for agricultural use. If you have a golf cart, people are renting out their personal golf carts for people to use. If you have tools and equipment, you can rent that out. People are renting out clothing and, baby gear, musical instruments, sporting goods, jet skis. So really talk about thinking outside of the box. People are actually wrapping their personal vehicles to advertise for other businesses. So options are really endless, and there are many apps and listing sites offering these types of services. Just to name a few, there's Fat Llama, loanables.com, and renta.com. People should really just take a look at what they own and start thinking about how they can make money off of it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that was some really great information. I mean, some things that I just have never thought about. as far as renting out your assets and your goods, right? So that was a great list of ideas, and it's probably going to spur people to think about other ones too, right? So yeah, thank you. That
Definitely.
sure, yeah. So Kiah, what are some of the regulations and restrictions in the area for renting an apartment or a house on a short-term basis?
Sure. So here locally in Jefferson County, the planning board has given, the planning board says it's up to the towns to establish their short-term rental regulations. So this is a new growing business, and laws and regulations are forever changing. Just stay up to date and comply with your local government to avoid any kind of implications. Some examples of restrictions could be the number of days a property can be rented. Certain zones in cities have different requirements than other zones within the same city. Some places you can only rent out your private residence. Other cities limit the number of rentals in a specific location. Municipalities may require a license or permit to ensure the property's health and safety requirements are compliant with zoning, and neighboring properties are notified. If you do not own the property and you are a renter, you definitely want to just look into your lease agreement, because many lease agreements have restrictions such as prohibiting short-term rentals and subletting properties. And if you live in, say, a homeowners association, or you have a place that you like to purchase in homeowners association, you definitely want to comply with the HOA rules and regulations. There may be additional restrictions, such as, limited number of guests allowed on the property, pet restrictions, or they might prohibit vacation rentals altogether. So my best advice to anybody looking to get into this type of business would be to go to your local municipality and investigate any local restrictions or regulations.
Yeah, because it sounds to me, I've had a little bit of experience because I live in a small town, and there's been some real, conflict here as far as what's allowed. And we were just having a conversation about the other day, and basically our village, it's a little bit different outside of the village in our town, but in the village, you really cannot rent out through Airbnb or anything. So it's not just about, well, can you rent monthly or weekly? It's really that you can't do it at all,
Right.
And just like you said, Kiah, it's so different everywhere that you really do have to take the time to figure out, you don't want to find out later after making an investment or something.
Exactly.
And that's definitely the key message here. But it's really interesting. You're talking about like the homeowners association and everything, two things that people don't think about. So yeah, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So if we're talking about doing short-term rentals, it probably is good to consider, whether or not you really need to form a small business, right? Or a business. And if so, what business structure works best? Kiah, can you talk to us?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend forming a business to run a short-term rental like this. It's important to definitely keep your personal income separate from your business income, and establishing a business structure can help with that. My best advice would be to consult with your personal accountant and even an attorney when deciding on a particular structure or entity. They analyze your personal situation. They take into consideration the assets that you own, and they can determine the best structure that would best benefit you tax-wise. So that being said, sole proprietorships, they give you the least amount of personal protection, but they are the easiest to form and they are the cheapest. Corporations, they definitely give you more personal protection, but there are more, requirements and expenses involved. So.
Yeah. So really reaching out to your local professionals that way too, and your CPA, and trying to figure out and your attorney even to figure out what's best that way. And it could be, right, that, you start off kind of simply, that you can, start as a sole prop or an LLC or something. And then as things grow or you make more money, you could eventually move into an S corp or something like that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Complicated right away, but yeah. Okay. Great. So Hanah, I would love to get you involved in the conversation here and talk a little bit about, how people are doing this as far as, whether or not they have to make improvements. So, the question is, can I get a loan to make improvements to my property for a short-term rental?
Hi, everybody. Absolutely. So one of the best and easiest ways to finance repairs and improvements on a short-term rental is to get a HELOC, a homeowner line of credit. And if you have an existing primary property that has some equity, that is a really good way to do it. You could also do it through a personal loan, but it's much easier to use the equity in your house to demonstrate to your financial institution, who you've built a trusting relationship with, right? That you have certain tasks that need to be accomplished. But essentially, for most homeowner line of credits, once you get approved for the amount, you can use it for pretty much anything. So if you need to do improvements, you can exercise the line of credit. The line of credit extends for 5 years, and then you have 10 years to repay. And it's great. It's better than a term loan because you only pay on the portion that you use. So you might have $30,000 available to you, but you only need $10,000 to upfit a bathroom or weatherproof or do something that's similar to your short-term rental. And you only pay on the $5,000 until you've paid it off. And then you have 5 more years to utilize that $30,000 amount. So, and interest rates are very good and competitive right now too for HELOCs, for homeowner line of credits.
Awesome. Great. Anything else as far as, so you said you could use a personal loan too, but then you're having to pay on the entire amount. So that's what you're saying.
And and a lot of financial institutions don't love it when you do your own work for construction type loans or things of that nature. So they want to see contracts with a contractor. They want to know how much you're going to spend and on what. Sometimes they will only pay directly to, so it depends on if it's a personal loan or a business loan. But sometimes if you get a business loan for something like this, the financial institution will mandate that you pay the contractor, that they pay the contractor directly. So you don't really get and they'll do different draw periods and things. They'll protect your interests, but they won't necessarily give you all the control for it. The other thing is, if somebody is looking to purchase another property to rent out, something that's not going to be their primary residence or will be a business asset, home equity line of credit versus a business loan, those are two different options. But you can actually get, if you have some equity in your house, and considering that the market right now is nuts, right? Have you guys seen house prices right now? They are insane. Yeah. So if you get a couple of really good comparables and can get a new appraisal on your property, it's possible that you could get a little more, headroom in your home equity line of credit. And then you use that money as a down payment, essentially cash, to purchase another property. You should then convert it into a mortgage, my 2 cents. But there's a lot of creative ways that you can use a home equity line of credit to finance a short-term rental or a purchase of a short-term rental property.
Yeah, cool. So what I'm hearing you saying is now could be a good time for people to be thinking about making these investments. Yeah,
absolutely.
What about using any kind of loan, including a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, to be able to buy a boat or some other kind of piece of property? Is that an option?
Right. So if you need some financing, basically operating capital, right, to upfit your short-term rental, you can, if you get your homeowner line of credit approved, you have space within that usage to buy something like a boat. Here's the thing about boats. You're going to be paying on it way long after that boat is dead in the water. So you really have to be careful in terms of putting money in the right thing. So like a kayak might get you more renters, right? Or an outdoor shower. those are the kinds of things you want to direct your attention towards, the things that will create more demand for your product, result in less vacancies, and increase your cash flow. And when you put in for a business loan, they're going to want to see how you've used the rental in the past if you already own it, right? How many nights have you had occupancy? How much has your average monthly profit been from, or revenue been from, a short-term rental? If you buy a boat, your interest rate's going to be not the greatest for what you want, I think, and B, it's just you're going to be paying on it for a very long, long time. So don't do that.
Interesting. Okay.
Don't do the big boat.
Okay, interesting. That is good advice. So are there any other ways, Hanah, that, you know, people's lenders can help with regard to short-term rental, short-term rental business? Yeah.
Right. So I do business technical assistance for Cooperative Federal, and I am always on hand. I can help you think about your cash flows. You know, how much is it going to actually cost you to manage this property, right? You have to think about insurance, which I think one of our other presenters is going to talk about today. You have to think about your cleaning costs. If you're flipping this space every day or every other day or every week, you need to have a cleaner in there constantly. You might have additional property management costs that you will take on yourself, or you might need to outsource. Really thinking through the nitty-gritty detail of what does it cost to manage, what does it cost to promote, what does it cost to get bookings, and then seeing how many days or nights per month you can get filled. There's going to be an off season. How do you schedule repairs? So really thinking through the dynamics and charting that out in your cash flow projections, and then figuring out, how am I going to track this? Am I going to open a new business bank account? Am I going to do a QuickBooks or a Wave accounting app to do my bookkeeping for this project? What other assistance am I going to need? So business technical assistance, which you can get through me, you can get some additional ones for your business plan development through the SBDC, through other resources in our area, SCORE mentorship network. And it sounds like you guys have a whole host of people on this call specifically who are really excellent contacts.
That's right.
But your financial institution, by and large, will be able to help you think through what the implications are for you personally and your business. And connect you with other resources, you know, possibly legal or financial or insurance-based, that can help you really succeed in this.
Right, exactly. And just like any business startup, right? You don't do it alone. You do it with the professionals behind you. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out to the SBDC office, but also, you know, contacting Hanah too, because if you don't have a relationship with a business lender, you know, then she'll be able to help.
And we specifically Cooperative Federal also, we have a mission to serve Fulton, Oswego, and the Syracuse area. Not exclusively those areas, but that is something that we have been working with New York State to broaden our impact.
Yeah, great.
So yes, if we can help, definitely, but don't also start a business without a plan. You got to have a plan to start a business. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And lots of people need help with that. So that's what we're here for. So Emily, if you're here and can hear me, I am curious about what you think, as being an Airbnb Superhost too, about which online vacation rental sites people should think about using, in your opinion.
Yes, I am an Airbnb Superhost. I've been doing this for over 6 years now. In the Saratoga Springs area, which was, you know, a very easy place to get started because there's so much going on there. But really, then and now even more so, with travel kind of looking a little bit different in the way of hotels versus private rentals. It's just exploded. So I specifically, you know, cater to Airbnb. My rentals are through Airbnb, and it's been a wonderful experience. I'm a designer as well. I had a space in my house. It's just a storage space that was just kind of a dumping ground, and I decided one day to turn it into a beautiful efficiency and got started. Airbnb made it very easy. I basically, you can join on your computer, and then you have an app. Like I said, it's been just a wonderful experience, and it was a very simple startup. It was a little overwhelming at first, just thinking of even doing this, but just a great experience. And I've expanded to having now 4 Airbnbs over the last 6 years, 2 in Saratoga, 1 in North Carolina, and actually 1 in South America. So I'm here to tell you that it is a wonderful experience, a great way to earn extra money. You do have to have some patience, but you meet people from all over, and just don't be afraid of it. Airbnb is there to support you. And again, there are many other sites as well. I used VRBO. And again, there's local, realtors, which are great. And, like Erika said, so many avenues, so many resources. But again, I'm specifically here to talk about Airbnb and, really my experience for, especially in the end if people have specific questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so nice to hear that you've had a positive experience. And that it's been a good thing for you, and that you've really grown your business that way. So very cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So Emily, what are some of the vacation rental sites, especially obviously Airbnb for you, as far as the rules and expectations about managing your short-term rentals?
Well, I can specifically talk about Airbnb and Vrbo. It used to be our VRBO, but now I guess it's Vrbo.
Yeah.
But really, as a starting point, assess your space. There are the givens. You want to make it welcoming. You want to make it, accessible. Think about the town you live in, or what you have or that surrounds you in the way of, whether it be restaurants, entertainment, just, a lake, hiking, those types of things. You really think about what you have to offer in the town that you live in, or the area that you live in, for vacationers, people that want to get out of the city maybe, or people that want to explore. I'll speak specifically of upstate New York. There's so many places to go. As far as rules and guidelines, I really thought about, private entrance. I do have 2 apartments attached to my house, in efficiency, and a 1-bedroom, making them as attractive as possible, as comfortable as possible. Again, I'm a designer, really thinking about bringing people to the area and feeling like they're at home in a neighborhood. My Airbnb, my rentals, you can walk everywhere. Airbnb provides very simply the guidelines and safety measures that you do have to follow. But again, it's all about creating that experience for the traveler in the town that they choose to spend time in. And again, don't be afraid of following the rules and guidelines and having people in your home, because you do have to be comfortable with it. But I've had just such a wonderful experience. Airbnb is all review based, so you feel comfortable that these people have provided government ID. They are government ID'd, information, that they have reviews, and you can pick and choose really who you want in your home, which is great. But again, there are safety measures, carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, things like that are very simple to make sure that it's safe. And then again, that you make the check-in and check-out very simple. You kind of limit contact, especially because of the pandemic. That's been a little bit different. You don't have to be, totally hands-on, but you need to be there to welcome, at least have a welcome message. I was just reading about some new guidelines that Airbnb put forth about the check-in and check-out process. The communication is very easy. People that are renting have the app, and communication is pretty much seamless that way. The pandemic definitely has changed things. I was watching Good Morning America the other day and realized just what especially now if you are considering renting, just that Airbnb specifically is looking just for thousands of hosts to be able to accommodate travelers. So it's absolutely booming, and such a great time now to really consider this and start, being an active host.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too that we're speaking to the North Country, the Watertown, Lewis County, Jefferson County, and there's so much tourism up there anyway in the summertime.
Yeah.
That I think there's
Yeah.
no reason to believe that demand is just going to be even more so in the next couple of years for sure, as people look for safe and fun places to go. Yeah. So thank you for all that information.
Yeah.
So Emily, how do the vacation rental sites get paid, or how does Airbnb work, or Verbo?
Okay, so when you sign up, there's a prompt through the app. Everything is through the app, very self-explanatory, very easy to follow. You can be paid through PayPal, your personal bank account, a debit card. They have 4 or 5 different ways, which will be explained to you. You pick one. I have a checking account, a business checking account called Eye on Saratoga Rentals, or Eye on Rentals, that I set up for myself. I did not want it, which I think was advised earlier, would be better to do, a business account, obviously. And I have a checking account, and it's directly deposited into my checking account within 7 days of the time the renter arrives. And again, it goes from Airbnb. The renters, the travelers, pay Airbnb directly, so you don't have to deal with any of that in the way of, exchanging money with your renters. It goes directly to Airbnb, and Airbnb pays you directly into whatever account you choose. They do take 3%, which I think is really reasonable, because most of the other rental companies like Verbo take a bit more. And so I thought 3% was very reasonable for all, basically for all that they do and all that they offer to you in the way of the app and the organization of the renting. And there are some service fees as well, but they're 14%, and that's taken from the renter, not away from the rentee.
Okay, great. Yeah, it seems then like it's pretty darn worth it, that 3% to get that.
It really is.
Trying to do it on your own, right? Yeah. Okay, Rhonda, our insurance specialist. Love to talk about, the all important question about, that we are talking about liability stuff here, right? If you're renting out anything. So the question is, do you need to get liability insurance?
Yes, absolutely. First of all and foremost, you really need to have a conversation with your insurance agent that's writing your property to make sure that they know what you're doing with the property. Because if you have your homeowner's policy, that does not take into account that you're renting your property to other people. They're pricing it, the coverage is there for you as an individual homeowner. So you need to properly address it, and every single company is different, insurance company, on how they treat the rentals. Some will allow some rentals, some say no, we have to charge extra to provide you coverage on your policy. So it's always a good idea to have that conversation with an expert so that you're not finding down the road that you're not covered for something under your own policy, because you are now in a business environment rather than a personal environment. There is some coverage. I did look at Airbnb's insurance policy, and they do provide coverage, probably as part of that 3% fee that they take. And it really was not bad coverage, but it doesn't cover everything. And it does not mean that your own policy will not come into play. So that's why you need to address, even though they have, I think they give you $1 million on your property worth of coverage and $1 million liability. That does not mean that it can't fall to your own policy. Likewise, if you're going to be putting the property in an LLC or a corporation, your insurance policy needs to address that and name that entity on your policy. Because an insurance policy is a legal contract. Just like your service agreement with Verbo or Airbnb, it's going to be a legal contract. And they all spell out, this is what we're going to cover, this is what we're not going to cover, this is what you need to do in the event of a loss. So it's very clear on what you need to do. because it is a legal contract. Now, to bring up the whole subject of boats, that's a whole different ball of wax. If you can think about the exposure now on a boat, that you're renting these boats to people, because, insurance is it's very old fashioned. They look at statistics, they look at exposures, and they come up with premiums based on that. And this whole sharing economy is really setting the insurance business in a tailspin because they don't know how to address it. They don't have statistics to look at to properly address the exposures that are now coming out. So I did make a couple of phone calls to our insurance carriers on boats in particular, and they were saying, we don't want any part of it. So, if you are thinking of doing the whole boat thing, you're probably going to have a huge expense for insurance on that end if you can find an insurance company to do it. Probably have to take out a business boat policy. So absolutely, it's a good idea when you're looking at your forecasting to know what your insurance costs are going to be, because it can be higher than what you're anticipating.
Yeah, and we may not know this for today, and we could find out if somebody was interested. But it's also a question of, I wonder if Boatsetter or some of those companies are providing some insurance too, or how they're handling that.
I think I did read that some of them are.
Okay.
Similar to VRBO, but I don't know the extent of
and,
them.
Yeah, and they all do. They all provide coverage, but that doesn't mean it can't fall down to you. There might be some exclusions or conditions that you might be brought in and you have to rely on your policy for. So you can't rely just on their policy, because they're going to try to limit their exposure too, especially if there's some negligence on your part. So don't rely on their coverage alone. You really need something to back it up.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with all this, with all of this in the short-term rental industry and insurance for sure. So Rhonda, can you give us a little bit of an idea about how to best handle a potential liability issue with a short-term?
Yeah. I think the first thing to do is to be proactive and try to eliminate possible claims from happening. So, it was mentioned that you have to have carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, things of that nature. But it's also a good idea to keep a log. Like, when did you last look at the property? What issues did you address? Did you check the railings? Did you check the the stairs? Check around from fresh eyes on what a possible incident could happen with your place. I know I've rented places before and nails have been up on the deck. Make sure that the nails are down. Just kind of look at things from a fresh standpoint to make sure that you're looking at everything so that nothing can happen. Have your furnace inspected periodically so that you don't have an issue there. Have somebody looking at the premises in between rentals if you're not able to be there, to make sure that some issues didn't develop from the last renters that need to be addressed. And if you're renting in the winter, make sure you've got salt, and make sure you have shovels for them, to keep things safe while they're renting the property. And if you are having snow plowing done, I would keep a log of snow plowing, just so if something comes up, you have something to go back to that says, yes, I salted, or I had it snow plowed just before they arrived.
Yeah, sure. Wow. Great advice. Appreciate all the detail and thinking about all those different possibilities. What happens just generally if something does happen? Is it a matter of just contacting your insurance agent right away if you have additional insurance? Or
well, with Airbnb specifically, because that's what I looked at, there were conditions that you had to take care of in order to go to their coverage. So they wanted it, I have some notes here, they wanted to be notified within 14 days of a claim. They wanted you to reach out to the renter. So you really have to look at your service agreement to see what they require. They required pictures, any remedies that you took care of. And that was both from a property standpoint and a liability standpoint. And absolutely, you know, then I would also report it to your own insurance carrier, because for instance, on a property claim, Airbnb is only going to cover you for actual cash value for damage to your property. So if something happens that the renter damages something, or they start a fire or something, they're going to depreciate for the age and condition of your property, where most policies cover replacement value. They're going to replace it at today's cost or repair it at today's cost. So you may have to then go to your own policy for coverage. So you need to alert your insurance carrier, especially on a liability case, because they want to be able to look at it right from the beginning in case they're going to be brought in on a lawsuit. So they want to be able to do their due diligence on a claim, to do their investigation.
Right. Oh my goodness.
I feel like a Debbie Downer here, but
no, not at all. This is so important. So many important things to think about that way, and making sure you're doing things the way that will that will be helpful in the future. So
I wanted to mention, because I've rented some places, and once they get you renting, they kind of take you off book because they don't have to pay that 3% fee. But then absolutely, like Airbnb, Verbal, they're not going to cover you for that rental that you're doing.
Right. Great point.
So that's just something to think about.
Right.
I'm not sure people that do that realize that they're jeopardizing that $1 million coverage that
they're not covered anymore. Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. Great point. Something I certainly hadn't thought about before. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for all of that, Rhonda. Emily, wondering about some best practices, you know, for keeping your short-term rental well maintained, and Rhonda covered some things, but anything else to add that way?
Yeah, I would agree with Rhonda for sure that you need to be checking constantly your interior and your exterior, certainly flooring, even doors. Sometimes doors come off hinges for overuse, kitchen cabinetry, things like that, your refrigerator, your bathroom, your plumbing, certainly if you have outdoor areas, decks and things. Yeah, absolutely. We live in the Northeast, so certainly the salt is a big deal. Salting things, keeping things clear for the guests. I have luckily had really wonderful experiences with my guests. I have, you know, in order to be a Superhost, I have very good reviews and good response rates. So that is something to take under consideration. I put 10 to 15 hours into this. You know, you are checking your app constantly, which gives you notifications. It's not overwhelming. It's actually fun, but it is, you know, something to consider that there's some time, definitely a lot of time and effort that goes into this. Yes, I do, you know, a lot of touch-up painting, things of that nature. I have a pretty rigorous cleaning schedule, especially with COVID. I had to take a course, you had to kind of sign in and review all the rules and the requirements for COVID, which was, you know, very simple and made a lot of sense. And I'm kind of keeping up with those practices, certainly. But I do have, when I can't be there, I have somebody in place, a cleaning service that helps me. You do charge a cleaning fee, which is part of the amount per night. You do have to consider what it would cost you to keep your place clean, whether you do it yourself or you have a service come in and clean for you, as well as cleaning products. You need to kind of, you know, keep up with fresh towels, fresh sheets, things like that. Definitely to be considered.
Yeah. Is there a way to find out sort of like, you know, did you look at anybody else in your area? Are you even able to, as far as what they charge for cleaning services? Because I'm assuming that's maybe a little bit regionally based, you know, as far as what.
Yes. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, the cleaning services, I did do a lot of research on that, and it's really based on the size. If you're renting a full house like my one in North Carolina, it's certainly going to be a little bit more expensive.
Sure.
I have two smaller places in Saratoga, and I'll tell you, I charge $50 for the cleaning fee. regardless of whether it's 2 nights or 5 nights. You know, I do allow pets, which does kind of boost my, boosts me in Airbnb because people do travel with their pets. I do have a pet requirement of a size, and you know, obviously a well-behaved pet, a house-trained pet, and a non-barker, obviously, because I'm in a neighborhood. But yes, you do want to do the research. You are able. Airbnb is great about giving you price tips, setting up your account, what they feel is trending in your area in the way of per night, what if there's an event going on. They're very helpful on a daily and seasonally basis as to what's going on in your area, as far as price tips and how to set it up and how to maximize and get the biggest bang for your buck. But cleaning services range from anywhere from $50 to $150 for a stay.
Okay. All right. Very cool. So I didn't realize that Airbnb helped with those kinds of things too. So that's good to know. So you touched a little bit on, you know, what it means to be, or what it takes to be a Superhost. What else can you share with us as far as how that all works and having that what do you?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Getting to that point.
Yeah, so Superhost status. It took me about 2 years. You start off, you know, as a host, you list your space with all of the pertinent information and beautiful pictures, which really I just did on my iPhone. And then you just, you know, you get started. And when, you know, you're looking for obviously those first 10 to 20 rentals, really good reviews. So you really need to be in contact with those renters, making sure that they checked in and everything's good. Is there anything, you know, we can do for you? And then you kind of leave them alone. And then in the end, you know, kind of say, you ask for feedback. Definitely communication is huge, not overwhelming communication, but communication. And then you're reviewed. They have the opportunity to review you. They have 5 days, and then you have 5 days to review them. They review you first before you can even review them. So I got to the Superhost status because of my response rate to inquiries, rental communication, and then my reviews, my good reviews. You know, once in a while you will get a difficult review. I don't want to say bad, but I say difficult. Sometimes you're not always going to see eye to eye on what expectations are. I've only had, oh my gosh, maybe 2 or 3 in 6 years, but you do have the opportunity to respond to that review publicly after that review, which is helpful. Kind of, you don't want to say too much, but explaining maybe if there was a situation. Again, I've had a really good experience, but to get to that Superhost level, it's really all about your space, your response time to Airbnb and to the renter, as well as the reviews that are given on your space. And then they give you benefits once you get to that point. You get all kinds of rewards, and you get to be moved kind of to the top. If somebody puts in your zip code, you're kind of moved to the top, which is great.
Cool. So what kind of rewards? What do you?
We get incentive rewards for renting. If you want to travel yourself, you will get discounts.
Okay.
And
all right. That's cool.
Yeah. You also get discounts if you refer friends. So if I was to refer, and you get this anyway, even if you're a Superhost or not, if you refer friends to Airbnb host a space, then you get rewards for that as well, like points, which is great.
Yeah. Cool. So just to make sure I heard right, when we're talking about, you know, those good and maybe those sometimes bad reviews, you're going on to the app and addressing the bad review personally. Is that typically the good practice that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. You
Right.
have the opportunity to respond and, you know, basically defend yourself if you feel it was unfair. You try to be very diplomatic. You don't want to be defensive. You just want to simply address it, and then you move on. And people are, you know, that's on Yelp. The same thing as Yelp. If you're familiar with Yelp, it's the same type of review process.
I'm just going to go back here too and ask Emily, you had mentioned a little bit about how much time you're spending a week. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. I would say I spend 10 to 15 hours a week, give or take, whether it's cleaning or corresponding. A lot of times, and I do want to point this out, you control your calendar, you block it, and you make it available as much or often as you like. You should maybe constantly, but on a regular basis, be checking price points, which I do spend time doing. If I feel like I'm not renting enough and I want to rent more, I'll go in and they'll give you information on price points. If you want to, if you want to lower your rates a little bit, it's almost automatic. They'll tell you how many people are looking, how much they're looking to spend at any given time. So that's helpful. Again, the cleaning part of it does take up a little bit of your time, whether you're doing it yourself or you're corresponding with your cleaning crew. Again, updates, I always check my pictures. If again, as a designer, I change things sometimes, bedding and, fresh touch of a paint decor at times. So fresh pictures, things like that. But there is correspondence. People have questions before they come. They will reach out to you and with some questions. It's not overwhelming, but I would say, if to be safe, 10 to 20 hours a week, give or take, depending. But remember, I have 4 Airbnb rental properties.
Right.
So
it could be less,
could be less,
depending on your situation, right? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's great. All right, so I think we've pretty much covered everything. Do any of my panelists have anything else to add as far as any of the subjects we talked about?
Well, I can add on a little bit to that.
Okay.
What Emily was just talking about. Like she said, there's a lot of behind the scenes time that goes into managing a property like this, with scheduling bookings and replying to emails and online reviews and cleaning and flipping the property and paying bills and managing employees. If you have employees or contractors taking care of, the grounds or cleaning, shopping for supplies, keeping up with repairs and renovations, all those things. But I think most importantly, taking the time up front to make sure that this is a feasible and viable business for you is super advantageous. Understanding all the expenses that are involved. There's probably going to be a mortgage and taxes and heat and electricity, insurance, payroll, advertising. You'll have phone, cable, internet, possibly a website bill, repair and maintenance expenses. So really and also understanding the seasonality of your business. And so I think most importantly, you want to make sure that your business is going to cash flow. And that is where the SBDC can definitely help. So if you wanted to call and make an appointment and talk to us, we can definitely determine if the business is going to be feasible and or if any adjustments need to be made and give you suggestions. This is a huge long-term time and money saver, so definitely take advantage of our services. We are free and definitely can help, but as far as time devoted to this type of business goes, I always tell all of my clients that just be prepared to always be available or have a plan in place when you're not. So this can definitely be crucial to the success of your business.
Yeah, great. So just like any small business, like we said before, right? It's so that a planning piece is so important. Hanah, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to encourage everybody, letting your assets work for you is one of the best ways to build wealth, create a diversified form of revenue streams, and really kind of bolster your own personal earnings and income. Just do it smart and make sure that you have a relationship with your financial institution, one that's built on trust, and that you really take advantage of these other neighborhood resources for small businesses like the SBDC, like the business technical assistance that we have here.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm wondering if there are any questions, and if anybody wants to unmute themselves, or you can put it in the Q&A. I do see we had one question come in. Let's see, only available at New York City or New York State. I saw a few laws that owner has been there if the owner rents as Airbnb. I'm not sure. I don't know if maybe we could get some clarification on that question unless somebody else is understanding it and I'm just I'm not. Let's see. Few laws that owner has been there if the owner if the owner rent is Airbnb. So yeah.
Erika, let me take a crack at that. So,
Yeah.
you know, we're up here in northern New York, right? Our service area, Jefferson, Lewis, Oswego counties, it's rural. We have a few towns that have zoning and a bunch of towns that don't have zoning. We have some that have planning boards and some that rely on the regional planning boards to do that. But in urban areas, and you know, Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, New York City, it can be borough by borough, or even there can be, I don't want to say block by block, but certainly the best way to find out what the regulations are for short-term options for renting out your place, whether it's subletting or direct rental or Airbnb, is to call your town or city clerk. Start with them and say, here's what I want to do. Here's my address. Who do I need to talk? What are the regulations? And if they don't know, then okay, great. Thank you. Who do I talk to? And bother your state or your local government. They're the ones who create these laws. They're the ones charged with enforcing, and they should be able to provide you with written documentation of what you can and cannot do, and also an appeals process, because there's always an appeals process. So I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but I think that's you know, just to be truthful, there's a lot more regulation in urban areas than there are in small towns. The town I live in doesn't have zoning. There's zero zoning. We have a planning board, we have a board of assessment review, but we have no zoning. So call your town or city clerk and start with them and ask the questions. And if you're not sure what to ask, give our office a call and we can help you put together a list of questions, or as Hanah has pointed out, call your banker. They will also and if you don't have a relationship with your bank where you can do those kind of things, get a new bank or a credit union, which are member owned. I'm a huge fan of credit unions. If you don't have that kind of relationship with your banker, you need a new banker, because those folks are out there. One of them is on our call. So that's what I would do. I hope that addresses the question. If not, again, give us a call, provide us more details, and we can help you out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and just like we were talking about before, you know, it's not just urban versus rural either. It's based on so specific as far as towns, because I live in a small village here too, and it's completely different than where Liz lives, you know. So yeah, that encouragement to find out based on where you are is so important.